I flew the storm routes because nobody else would, and because the pay covered what the clinic bills back home didn't. 10 years hauling relay parts through the iron belts of the Corvent binary, dodging squalls that could cook a hull from the inside out, and I'd never once been struck clean. That changed on a Tuesday, hauling coolant manifolds to an outstation that never got them, when a surge front I didn't see on approach put its hand through my ship like it was reaching into a drawer. The strike knocked every screen dark and filled the cockpit with the smell of scorched insulation. I remember gripping the yoke through a glove that had welded itself to my palm, remember the horizon spinning twice before the automatics fought the ship level, and not much else until the tow crew from Corvent Relay Station cut me out of the wreck and put me on a stretcher. I'd taken worse falls off a ladder. I figured I'd be back in the air inside a week. I woke up strapped to a gurney in Corvent Relay Station's triage bay, every alarm on the board arguing with every other alarm, and a physician with skin the color of wet slate running a scanner down my arm like she was looking for something specific instead of something broken. I found out later her name was Dr. Aviath Sir. At the time, I only knew she'd gone still in a way that machines don't teach you to fake. "Run it again," she said to nobody to the room. They ran it again. I lay there with my burned hand wrapped in gel and watched 3 more physicians gather around a readout I couldn't see, speaking a language I'd picked up enough of over the years to know they weren't discussing my burns anymore. One of them left at a near run. I didn't think much of it. Storm strikes make people twitchy, and I was tired, and my hand hurt like the devil. The one who came back with her was the one who mattered. She walked in wearing a plain gray travel coat with no crest on it, hood down, dark indigo hair pulled back hard enough to read as someone who'd forgotten she had hair at all that week. It was her eyes that stopped the room, a molten, copper color, the kind that catches light instead of reflecting it, and the way every physician in that bay went quiet and half-turned toward her without being told to. Nobody introduced her. Nobody had to. She looked at the readout for a long moment. Then she looked at me, and something in her face did a thing I didn't have a word for yet, not surprise exactly, more like a woman finally hearing a sound she'd stopped believing was real. "Do you know what a continuity marker is?" she asked me. I told her I didn't. I told her I hauled freight through storms because the rates were good, and that until an hour ago the strangest thing that had ever happened to me was a fistfight over a card game on Perimeter 9. Neither did the last 20 years of physicians who scanned every human who came through this station, she said. "You're the first one who has it." Her name, I learned before the day was out, was Kalis Vantoreth, regent claimant of the Ilvresh Dominion, a throne that had sat empty in practice for 2 decades, while her court argued in circles about a succession law nobody could satisfy. The old Dominion families believed their bloodline's continuity marker had died out 3 generations back in a plague that took more royal children than anyone liked to admit in open session. Without a confirmed match, Kalis ruled in name only, doubted a little more openly every year by regents who found the arrangement convenient. I was, by the numbers on that scanner, the first confirmed match anyone had recorded in her lifetime. I want to say I took it well. I didn't. I asked if this was some kind of storm strike hallucination, and she told me, without a trace of humor, that she'd asked herself the same question about me. Word moves fast on a station that small. By evening, Regent Marshal Davrin Kess arrived from the Dominion's nearest holding, a broad, unhurried man with the particular calm of someone who has been quietly running things for a long time and intends to keep doing so. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Scanners can be seated," he said, standing over the readout with his hands folded behind his back. "Wounded humans can be paid. I won't have the Regency's legitimacy hang on a machine's word." "You've run this station's affairs well enough without a crowned regent for 20 years, Marshal," Kalis said, and there was no heat in it, only a tiredness that had clearly been carried a long time. "I understand why a confirmed heir might be inconvenient to you. I understand why a stranded cargo pilot might find it convenient to be crowned. Kess answered, not unkindly, which was somehow worse. Forgive me for wanting proof that doesn't come from a Bay reader 3 texts could have miscalibrated. Then let the seal decide, Kalis said. I didn't know what the seal was yet. She told me later in the corridor outside the Bay, while I was still working the gel wrap off my burned hand because I needed something to do with it. The continuity vault held a biolock built into the Dominion's founding, a device that answered only to a verified marker match, and killed, cleanly and without ceremony, anyone who touched it without one. It hadn't opened in 3 generations. Nobody currently living had watched it open. You don't have to do this, she told me. The scan is enough for me. It doesn't have to be enough for them. Does it have to be enough for you? I asked her. Or does it just have to end the argument? She didn't answer that right away, and I understood, watching her not answer it, that she'd spent 20 years being told her claim wasn't enough by men who never once had to prove anything about themselves. I'd spent 10 years being told by underwriters that my hands weren't steady enough to insure for the storm routes, right up until the day they were the only hands willing to fly them. It wasn't the same thing. It rhymed close enough. I'll do it, I told her. Not because Kess needs convincing, because you've waited long enough for somebody to stop arguing and just stand next to you. The vault was a plain gray room under the station's oldest deck, lit by whatever daylight the binary's twin stars through a single high window. No ceremony to it at all, just a waist-high pedestal holding a dull crystalline slab that didn't look like it could kill a man or crown a queen. Kess stood at the doorway with 2 regents flanking him, arms crossed, waiting to be right. Kalis stood closer to me than protocol probably allowed, her jaw set, her copper eyes doing everything her voice wasn't. If I'm wrong, I said, mostly to myself, at least I found out flying something more interesting than coolant manifolds. I put my burned hand flat on the seal. Nothing happened for 3 full seconds, long enough for Kess to draw a breath to say something final. Then the slab lit from underneath, a slow gold spreading out from under my palm like sunrise coming up through frosted glass, and a low tone rolled through the floor that I felt in my teeth before I heard it in my ears. The 2 regents at the door went to their knees without a word, the old kind of kneeling that isn't performance, the kind your body does before your mind agrees to it. Kess didn't kneel. But he stopped talking, which from him was close enough to the same thing. Kalis didn't say anything triumphant. She didn't look at Kess at all. She crossed the small distance between us and put her hand over mine on the warm crystal, not lifting it away, just covering it, her fingers finding the scar tissue the storm had left across my knuckles like she'd been looking for exactly that. 20 years, she said, quiet enough that it was only for me. And it took a man who flies through lightning for a living to stop asking me to prove I was worth believing. I told her the marker in my blood didn't make me anything. It just meant some old machine agreed with what I already thought the first time I saw her go still over a readout that scared everyone else in the room. She didn't answer that with words. She just kept her hand over mine on the seal a moment longer than the reading required, in front of the 2 kneeling regents and the one who wasn't, and let that be the whole of the announcement. No trumpets, no court crier, no crowd. Just a queen's hand closing over a pilot's scarred one, and a light that had waited 3 generations finally deciding it had found what it was built to recognize. I still fly the storm routes, I just don't fly them alone anymore.